It's Monday, July 8th, 2019, and this is the Pro and the Con Show, and I'm your host, Michael James Ott. Welcome to the show, as always. 15 to 20 minutes talking about the issues of the day. We're live here very close to 6 p.m. Central Time, 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific. Okay, so normally would look through some of the websites, the left-leaning ones versus the right-leaning ones. So I really, going from left to right, Huffington Post, CNN, NPR, Fox News, and Breitbart. So just going to look through them very quickly. The top of the news. So this fellow, Jeffrey Epstein, very wealthy individual, is now being charged with all kinds of sex issues with young women, unfortunately, for the country and for the people involved. So that's the number one story on the Huffington Post. The state of New York, the governor has signed legislation that was passed, interestingly, by their state houses that will allow the U.S. Congress to get at the state, the New York state tax filings of Mr. Trump. So let's see here, and then we'll talk about the campaign here in a bit. But Elizabeth Warren she has just announced, or her campaign has just announced just moments ago, that they had a pretty good second quarter as far as getting donations. Something that should be unnecessary. We shouldn't. Candidates should not have to raise hundreds of millions of dollars to run for office. This is an insanity, and I'll keep saying that. Hoping that at some point enough people will listen and we'll work together to try to address that. Anyway, let's go to CNN. So there's the ongoing battle. CNN, their top story is congressional Democrats have subpoenaed the Trump Organization yet again. So they keep trying to get, the Democrats keep trying to get at his financial records and so on. We'll see if they are ever successful doing that. Jeffrey Epstein again is one of the top people. There's a headline here that the Eric Swalwell has ended his 2020 presidential bid, but has elected. He's in the House of Representatives. He's elected to switch his campaign and run for House of Representatives again. So that's what he will be doing. So one of the candidates has dropped out. Let's see here. On NPR, so this is interesting. Oh, okay. So Mr. Trump has announced that he plans to repeat his 4th of July salute next year. Okay. So I'm going to be advocating that we actually have a We the People Perfect the Union rally for 1 hour on July the 4th. Just wherever you are, you go out to the street and you commune with your fellow U.S. citizens. Just shake hands, introduce yourselves, and pledge to each other that we're going to be better citizens for the next handful of years and do a better job understanding the issues and trying to be involved in our government, which is fundamentally, ultimately, what's wrong with us. So anyway, Mr. Trump has announced that he's going to try to do his big July 4th military parade kind of thing again next year. Meanwhile, the Democrats are pressing for an accounting of the costs of that, because it definitely was higher than it normally is by some handful of millions of dollars. Oh, another big story. So a British ambassador who has met with Trump multiple times over the last couple of years has been basically censured by the White House because he sent some internal memos back and forth to the British government, and somebody leaked them, which is a problem. The diplomatic memos are not supposed to get leaked. That's a problem. The other significant problem is this fellow, this diplomat, called Trump inept and clumsy and incompetent. And so the issue the issue is this is multiple people have this opinion of Mr. Trump as they interact with him around on the world stage, and I just think that that's indicative. I mean, multiple observations by multiple people, inept, incompetent, and clumsy, and it comes to what I've said in the past, and which appears to be true. At least when I go back and look at videos of Mr. Trump being interviewed 20 years ago and today, his vocabulary and mental capacity obviously has been greatly deteriorating over that time span. And and then he is, of course, a con artist, a con man, a confidence man. And so it doesn't seem like he is the best candidate to continue being president of the United States. You wouldn't think, unless we can't find someone that would be better than him in those particular areas. So anyway, his response, of course, Mr. Trump's response is that he doesn't know this ambassador at all, but people tell him that the ambassador is not well liked in the U.S. and he is now going to refuse to meet with this fellow. And I guess, including, I guess they have a dinner that was planned tonight, and so this ambassador has been uninvited from a dinner with Mr. Trump. Okay, and I don't really see too much in here about okay, so I think what's left is just to say a few words about the Democratic, because unfortunately, people like on the Republican side, people like Jeb Bush and Kasich, Kasich. These guys were pretty good candidates, it seemed, from the Republican Party, and of course the tradition is that the incumbent from a particular party, and we only have two of them, two significant parties anyway, it will never be challenged by other party members. But again, if you rewind just a few minutes ago, so a con artist, confidence man, con man, and greatly deteriorating mental capacity, well, surely, come on. I mean, the Republicans should at least try to offer alternatives within their own party that would offer us, the rest of us, the common voter, we would at least have some potential for finding someone that wasn't a con artist, con man, confidence man with limited mental capability to be president of the United States, and also maybe with more conservative views for those of us that would like that. Anyway, so on the Democratic side, Eric Swalwell fell out. There's a billionaire Steyer, Tom Steyer, I think his name is, that apparently he's going to announce that he's going to get in and try to become the Democratic nominee using his own funding, basically. If you look at the current field of the 20 whatever something, you really, it would appear, and let me after considerable thought and reflection, it seems like the best candidate would be very comfortable speaking freely in front of any audience, perceived as empathetic to the public in general and with a modest sense of humor, minimum skeletons in the closet regarding past comments, actions, or voting records, perceived to be fair-minded and open to opposing views, does not accept funding from rich donors, probably a man, although could be an exceptional woman, comes from one of the swing states in the Midwest, and has some previous leadership experience in government service, either in government office or military. Well, if you think about the current Democratic field, there's a whole lot of people that don't meet these criteria. One of the main ones being from, kind of the center part of the country, and also, being very comfortable speaking freely in front of audiences without teleprompters and so on. And so I think the rise of Elizabeth Warren is because she fairly well fits these criteria. I think that Joe Biden, his campaign is step by step losing momentum, it would seem, and the biggest one is that he has many skeletons in the closet regarding past views. So so he's got a problem with that, and then Bernie Sanders also has a problem with that because there's pre-existing videos and emails and stuff of him early in the early days, but still, praising Fidel Castro and so on. They just have a lot of baggage that apparently Elizabeth Warren would not have. So it would look like Elizabeth Warren is probably one of the most prominent future candidates in the Democratic Party here for the 2020 race. And then it looks like Biden and Sanders could be pretty iffy. And then you get to Kamala Harris, and she potentially would be okay, except for she's not from one of the swing states. She's from California, and I think she's born and raised in California. Could be wrong though. I haven't checked that, but that's what I'm thinking. So I think that that's going to be problematic. And then trying to think of, so there's Cory Booker, so Pete Budaj Edge is the other person that would seem to be, and then Amy Klobuchar behind him. So these are to me, it feels like the Democratic Party ought to go ahead, even though they are trying to be inclusive at this point. It is sounding like the next debate later this month is still going to have maybe as many as 20 candidates on stage. But the reality is the wheat is already sifting from the chaff. And, okay, Biden and Sanders because they are still certainly polling well, but I personally don't see how they're going to continue with, given their histories, and given that they both have other candidates that represent their positions without those histories. So then you have Warren, Budaj Edge, and then Kamala Harris, maybe, but she's got to prove. Budaj Edge has a big problem just because, well, not just because, but because he has a real significant concern that minorities have about him because of the whole thing with the South Bend police and the fact that it does not seem like they've been very fair and inclusive of minorities in the South Bend police, even though some of the things that he's done clearly were intended to go in that direction, but other things that he did were opposite. So that is the main thing. He is Mr. Budaj Edge. If you watch him, he is probably one of the most gifted public speakers and thinkers that we have had on the national stage in a long time. I mean, the guy is incredibly gifted in those areas. The problem is, and his problem is, that he really, really, really has to work on the minority support thing. Otherwise, his candidacy is not going to go where he wants it to go. So anyway, the point being that 20 candidates on the Democratic side is already too many. It was early on, but you don't know. I mean, you don't know who's gonna, the spark that's going to ignite the flame, right? But that's now at this point, it's already very clear that there's 8 or less candidates that are really viable on the Democratic side. And the sooner we get to focusing on those 8, or the Democratic Party gets to focusing on those 8, and hopefully then really coordinating and working on the platform, which needs to go from some of this more liberal socialist kind of stuff to a more central kind of thing, which is actually Mr. Biden's calling card, and also Amy Klobuchar. Those two candidates are the two that are saying, we need to be more centrist here. We need to, of course, be focused on the individual and the middle class, but in a way, with much less liberal view on everything, kind of dial everything back into a more centrist thing, which I personally believe is absolutely correct. And it's a horrible thing for the Democratic Party, and I've talked about this before. It's a horrible thing for our political parties because of the way they exist, that candidates end up getting dragged into places where, the fact is probably 70 or even 80% of us want to be in the middle. We just can't seem to let these stupid political parties, they just can't give us these candidates and the positions because of the political party bases that drive this polarization, and it all goes to the wealth and the power and their views and all that kind of stuff. So it's very unfortunate, but we're going to fix that, because on July the 4th, 2020, and for years beyond that, we're all going to be better citizens. We're going to embrace the truth, the whole truth and nothing but the truth, the pro and the con, the good and the bad, the for and the against. And we're going to come to policies and laws that are better for all of us, better understood and better and more accepted for all of us. And a lot of this hate and discontent's all going to go away because we're going to fix the damn system. All right. Well, we're running out of time, so this has been the Pro and Con Show for Monday, July 6th, 2019. I'm Michael James Ott. Thank you for watching. Until the next show, bye for now.